What games did you play as a child?
As a child, the games we played mostly, we'd say when I was year age, the boys and the girls, we seldom played together. But the boys usually, in my age, there was a fellow by the name of Hopalong Cassidy. He was beyond the films. He was a cowboy. And that's the games we used to play. Cowboys and Indians. And of course the cowboys always beat the Indians. So you had to be a cowboy. So I'd be there and I wanted to be a Hopalong Cassidy, because Hopalong Cassidy had 2 guns and you could shoot what Indians are there. And the Indians in my day had bow and arrows, which we made ourselves. Do you know who Hopalong Cassidy? Never have a Hopalong Cassidy. No. We must get old films. Hopalong Cassidy was our hero. All the cowboys were. And we spoke with playing cowboys and Indians. That's for the boys. The girls. Oh yeah, another game we had was Conquest. Do you know what Conquest are? That's a game. I'll show you how to play Conquest sometime. You get them, they're chestnut teeth, probably called. And you put them in a string, right? And you have a good one. And you give your man 3 shots. And if you broke your conquer, he was the winner. So you got 3 shots, if you broke his conquer, he was the winner. The girls mostly played a thing called cobby. You ever hear of it? No.
Cobby house.
Cobby, now you have it. And what they used to do with the girls, they go around and, because usually below here, this is our playground down here on the green. I lived just over there when I was born. And they played cobby, which is a first shop every year for a week. So that's what they played. They'd be going around, they collect bits of china, with broken mugs and cups and things like that, and they put them out like that. They pretend they were in a house, and they pretend to be drinking tea and all that. That's what the girls played.
Do you amuse yourself in a special way at certain times of the year?
Well, usually stealing apples was a good time. We had no apples for sale in the shops, so we had to get into the... There was a couple of orchards around the place. Jumping over the wall, they'd do that. But when we got a bit older, below where the hall is, we got our first modern cinema down there. There's a fellow come from Clonmel in the van, and he bring on the pictures with us. That's where Hopalong Cassidy be below, and Hopalong Cassidy be behind the van, or behind the big stone. The Indians would be coming there, we'd be shouting, behind you, watch out the Indians. That was our first. It cost 3 pence to go to that pictures, which is about 8% now, but we hadn't 3 pence. Unless we got 3 pence over, 3 pennies was a little bronze time, and that was 3 pence. It cost 3 pence to go to that. For those were our cinemas and our modern communications. That was it. And of course, half the time, the table break halfway with us to sit down to minute and put the bowling in. But below in the broken hall, or as we call it down there, that was our cinema.
Did you tell stories while sitting around the fire in winter?
Well, I didn't tell him, but there was a man here, if you ever related, he was David Nagel was his name, if you ever related to Dallins way back, and he used to tell us ghost stories. About there, in a little house that was up there, if you look, just up the road there, and we'll show you where the families were born. But he tells us ghost stories. And I definitely would be afraid of my life today from there to go down to my house. There'd be ghost stories that time. There'd be people coming down with sheets on them and frightened their lives out of us that time with ghosts. You didn't hear them. And at this time of the year now, I'm not going to go too far, with the old people, this is a very scary time for them. May was, we'll say, to go back to pagan religions. And they used to be very afraid of pishogues. Anyone hear of pishogues?
Yeah.
And May Eve, they'd always go around the Latin would go around the property, and they get the holy water and they shake it in the holy water. Because they could run into a very bad look if the pishogues arrived around the place. Pishogues. It was a pagan thing. There's this place, I think, called Drummondale would be the name of the place, around where I was. But I was born here in Churchway. I was just born on the road here, beside you. But Drummondale, Kappa was usually, Cappawhite or Kappa was we usually called the place. That time you must remember that we had no maps or anything like that. You know what I mean? That we didn't go into this different towns and all that. We were just from Cappawhite and that was it. Like, you know what I mean? But there is different towns around it, you know. There's still a few around.
Do you know any Irish?
Very little. That's how I like it. Irish was, when, if you go back, how we say, I'm just tracing back to my grandmother's time, when she went to school, Irish was forbidden in her time to be taught in school. Like, you know what I mean? And that came down to us. So when I was here, we were never taught Irish here. We were never taught Irish in this school. But when I went to the secondary school, I learned a small little bit of Irish.
Were houses more numerous in former times?
No, there's more houses built now than there ever was. You know what I mean? If you look at all the big estates that's around the place. When I was young for that, there probably 11 people lived in two houses, in 2 rooms. Now there is 2 people living in 11 rooms. So if you look at it, when I was born below there in the house, there was 8 of us. No, it was. My father, my mother, 10. There was 11 of us living down there. That's in 2 rooms.
People immigrated from there to America or elsewhere for informal years.
Definitely, in my time, England was the place. Every one of us, I think, if I remember rightly, all my brothers and my sisters were in England at one time. Every one of us were in England.
Did you go, Johnny?
Oh, did I? Yeah.
Do you remember when you went? Do you remember that time?
I wonder how we got like, time is getting long. I arrived in England, my uncle took me over there, right? And I was small like he. And the first test I got to know with my hands tipped the bottom of the sink, I get a job washer up, right? But where was it? In Buckingham Palace. That's the executive after. I got 2 years there.
In Buckingham Palace?
Yeah, with my sisters, yeah.
How'd you get there?
We got on a steam train, choo 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 choo, out in Dundrum. We haven't, and you know the steam train is, you do?
Yeah.
And we got a boat in above in Dublin, all the way over, and got another steam train over in England. It took us nearly over a full day to get to London that time. Yeah. You can go from here to America now in a bit of a day. It used to take us nearly a day and a half. A night, the boat would be at night, and take another 4 or 5 hours of the time to go to London. I was in London in like 15 or 16.
Any rivers, lakes, or streams?
That's another thing. There's a place called the Line River out here, right? And then there's the Cappawhite River. And that's where we used to go swimming. If we wanted to go swimming, we'd go out, the bigger fellas would go out and they'd block the river outside.
Block it?
Block it with...
Dam it?
Dam it, yeah, and that was our swimming pool.
What was the local fair held?
In my time, we got a day off during the fair. Because the fair was held alone in the village, right? And the farmers would be bringing in their cattle at night time or during the day. And they'd stack them up outside the houses like that. And they'd be minding them there all day for the cattle. And then they'd be going selling them below. They'd sell them below at Hinches, there were Hinches there. This is my time, below there. And the cattle would be brought in and they'd be going around one at a time and they'd be buying them and selling them, right? That's where below. But before my mother's time was around, the fairs used to be held here in the Breen. We used to call this the Breen, as you know there. And the fairs would be held there. And the farmers would be coming in there where they could get their cattle into the best positions, get them up high where people could see them. And when the cattle were in the best positions, you probably got a bit nicer. Right? And if you wanted to earn a few shillings then that evening when the fair, of course there was cattle mostly, then there was horses, and then there was pigs and bunners. You know the bunner you do. Yeah. If a bunner got under the car below, we'd be out running after the bunner to catch the bunner because we get 6 months if we got the bunner and put him back in the car. That would be a scare. In the evening time then, the farmer would be after buying his cattle and he'd have to take them home. And most places he could take, the railway station was in Dundrum, which is 6 miles away. So the 4 or 5 of us get together and there was a drove of him in the village in chairs, an older man, and we get 6 pence for driving, walking all the way to Dundrum and back. Those were the fairs. Cattle, pigs and horses. Big day out. Place would be packed. There would be 2 or 3 people selling sandwiches and making tea and spoken hall below the big food there and all for them. That's what the big day. One of the biggest fairs around was here in Cappawhite. A fair day. And the farmers that time, that's the only way they had to sell their cattle. Was here on the fair day.
How were animals marked and sold?
As far as I remember, they had a small little disc, a little paper disc, and there's glue, and they stick it onto the back of the cow.
Okay, so just glued onto the cow at that point.
Yeah, it's glued onto the cow, there's no cow, yeah. Well, the cows always know their own cows, you know what I mean? They would know. But when they go to sell them, they'll all be stamped, and there'll be cow number, the animal will be 21, 22, 23, or 24. They'll flog it, they'll know it in, you know.
What does each meal consist?
Well, porridge was a great thing that time, porridge. That would be our main meal. Fresh meat would be very scarce. And it was mostly into bacon and cabbage and things like that. But fresh meat, there was no such thing as a butcher, I'd say. I remember a butcher coming here, alright, but butcher and stuff was in my time. So my father and them, they would know what butcher was and just do it to town. But everyone kept the pig that time. You know what I mean? They got a pig. Made their black puddings that time, which were another. Not that they had that, but mostly, it was mostly in our time, especially before my time, it was mostly bacon and things like that.
Potatoes eaten at every meal.
Oh God, you can say that again. The potatoes kept it alive. Like, yes, you'll never see with potatoes. When you put the potatoes they kept it alive.
Did you drink milk at each?
You would drink, yeah, you had them to get this, yeah. If the people had them, if they had them, like, you know, I remember people were very poor then, like, you know, money was scarce.
But you'd have a cow, even a farmer would have he'd have the milking cow for the house.
The farmer would, our milk had to be bought from the farmer, you know what I mean? But my mother kept a goat. She kept a goat, my mother, with a goat young baby. When she was married, she'd always say to herself, the best present she ever got, that's what she got. She got a present of a goat when she got married. That's what she gets. And so, of course, the kid did with meat as well, like, you know what I mean, the young goat. And of course, we had, now that you're talking about milk, when the farmer goes that time to the train, he'd bring back what we call sour milk. And you could drink as much as that as you like, the farmer, so that you have that. But when they were baking the bread, they had to have that milk. So the milk coming back, then we'd be waiting for the farmer to come back, especially when I moved down the road to the Smiths. We go down, there'd be a big tub of oil, of milk, sour milk. You stick your head into that then and drink away. Cold neat.
Did people sit around, was the table kind of in the centre, or would you have a kind of wall?
It would be, the table would be a timber table, yeah. The chairs then were sugan chairs, yeah. And you know what the sugan chairs? No, like a butter box. And you know what a butter box is? No. That's what we sat in.
What was a butter box? So tell them what a butter box was.
A butter box was, the butter would come into the shops that time, and the butter box would be a nice little square butter box like that. And if the shopkeeper gave it to you, then you had a seat. So you turn the box upside down and you sat in it. That was your seat. Where I came from, that's the low seat. And of course, if you broke your boat, if you got it, you got out of the jam job then. And just have to drink the tea out of the jam job, because the jam job would be hot. But the next time you got a mug, you didn't break it.
What kind of bread was you?
The bread in my time, my mother used to break was in flour. The flour used to come in bags, and they'd buy the bags of flour, and she'd bake bread in a pot. It's called a vegetable.
A bastable.
A vegetable, yeah. There was a vegetable. What was the pot was called? Anyway, vegetable. It was called a vegetable. The bread would be inside, and the heat would be on top, and they get the seeds in, and they put it on top. You know, lovely white bread. Yeah.
Was meat often eaten?
If we had it, yeah. Eggs, that was another great feed of ours. You know what I mean? You get the eggs. The eggs, they were another great feed of ours. You had an egg. That's if you had an egg. When Easter would come, we were talking about gold, when Easter would come, if you got 2 eggs on the Easter morning, you were going well, they were buying a skillet of the pot. It was called a skillet. And they were buying inside that we'd be all looking, there's my 2 eggs, that's my egg, no, that's your egg, we went to get our eggs. That was Easter Sunday with the eggs.
Was fish eaten?
Yes. With the sport at winter time. Every time the winter come, they'd salmon come up the rivers. It was illegal to catch it. But we used to go to the night and we used to catch them with a lamp. And we had a special spear for us. And we'd spear the salmon. And we had plenty of fish then. And if anyone is interested in fishing, they go fishing and bring them back to us. But we never got fish from the sea or that we were too far in, and they never sold it. But in the winter time, they have the salmon when they come up.
Did you eat vegetables?
Oh, we did. Plenty of cabbage and foods. That's what you had. Carrots and things like that would be very rare, and passionate and things unless you had a garden. But there's mostly cabbage. Good really cabbage. And you had to drink the cabbage water. You weren't left out, you drank them over that. Give you iron, I said. I don't know what it is. Keep it alive in there.
Are there any towers in the district?
There was the one now below the tomb. That's the only one we have. And I think that was the church. But there is a castle, as you see, about all here. You know, just out there in any castle up there. What I don't know, can you go to see?
Ballysheedy Castle.
Ballysheedy, yeah. That's the only one I know. And there's one inside the village of Ballycatty. That was an army barracks, wasn't it?
Yes.
Just as you go through there.
Any stories about the first company?
All I heard was what that time. I remember religion was banned and churches were closed. You weren't allowed to go to church or anything like that. And they used to have, actually the schools were there one time too. You couldn't have schools. And like they had hate schools, you know what I mean?
It was Catholics. It was very much Catholic religion.
Anti-Catholic, yeah, anti-Catholic religion, or Irish language. That was completely. They came in, they wanted to make us more English than the English, but we turned the English around and we made them more Irish than the Irish. So that's what I tell you what happened that time.
Has your district been connected with any movements in our system?
Well, my name is Breen, and we'll say, if you're talking about recent history, we'll say the War of Independence and all that, we'll say if you ever write or talk about it, a book on Dan Breen. He was a local IRM, and I've actually a frame of a picture of him below on this, I showed this sometime. He's wanted from over in Ireland, just we're going to shoot the English soldiers and things like that. So he would be, they did sit right to the barracks here, you know, during that time.
The Black and Tan time.
Yeah,
What are the biggest changes that you see since you were a child? What's the biggest massive change?
When you look at the school we had here, look at it compared to what I had. The toilets was out the back there, the stone wall, that was it. There was no pulling chains. There was no toilet paper. That was it. No heating. There was nothing to eat. You know, unless you watch your lunch switch at that time, I probably won't fit. You sat down with your bottle of milk. The new housing and the transport, the cars. Like when we were below playing in the street below there, there's a car coming, that's Georgie Ford. Now when I get up in the morning, I walk out to the guy there's about 20 cars passing in the road. Like it has changed, the country has changed completely. You know what I mean? All for the better. You know what I mean? It's great to see such a lovely country and see such lovely places you have here. You don't appreciate it and things like that. And I'd be always talking about the punishment we had here. Like, you didn't do too much wrong here when you were going to school. But I'll tell you one thing, if you did, if you crossed the line, you would remember it for a long, long time. The master that was here, no, he wouldn't. If you went to your mom, you get your lessons there in the night time to do them in the morning. He'd ask you the lessons to see what you're doing. And you got slapped if you didn't do them. You got slapped if you didn't know. And you got slapped if you were bored. And you got slapped if you did nothing at all. Like, you know what I mean? So it's very regimental that way when we went to school. He was one of the few that had to speak, like, you know what I mean? He doubts that now with this kind of they were But anyway, that was the school. And the following times, look at the lovely houses, yeah, when you go home. Look at the television. Like I said, the first time I saw a picture moving was above the white wall belonging to school, belonging to local law. Like, and you have iPhones and modern phones. There was only one phone in Cappawhite, I'd say, one to the girls' barracks and maybe one to the doctor. That was it, all on the open glass and boards.
We had a hurl when you were.
I used to build a big hill on the place with the hurl. Yeah, out there every day outside the hurl. There, yeah. And now I'll ask you a question. What would you like to see in the future? You see what I'd like to see? What would you like to see in the future? And you're going to answer that? Well?
More hurling.
More?
Even more hurling.
You have a great life. Enjoy it.